The rain hammered against Marcus Thompson's apartment window like angry fists, each drop echoing the emptiness that had consumed his life for the past 8 months. He stood in his cramped kitchen, watching his 7-year-old daughter Emma push cereal around her bowl, her small shoulders hunched in a way that broke his heart daily. The foreclosure notice on their refrigerator seemed to mock him, another reminder of how spectacularly his world had crumbled when Meridian Industries had pulled their contract without warning, destroying his small construction company and everything he'd built. "Daddy, why do you look so sad all the time?" Emma's voice cut through his bitter thoughts like a knife. Marcus forced a smile, the same hollow expression he'd perfected over months of pretending everything would be okay. "Just thinking, sweetheart." "Finish your breakfast." The knock at the door came at 11:47 p.m. Sharp and desperate. Marcus had just fallen asleep on the couch after another fruitless night of job searching when the sound jolted him awake. Emma was safely tucked in bed, and nobody ever visited this late. His hand hesitated over the deadbolt, every instinct screaming danger. But when he peered through the peephole, his breath caught. A woman stood in the hallway, swaying slightly, her dark hair matted with what looked like blood. Her expensive-looking coat was torn, and even through the distorted lens, he could see her face was a canvas of bruises. Marcus opened the door without thinking. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm outside. "I just need." "I can't." Her knees buckled, and Marcus caught her before she hit the ground. He should have called the police, should have taken her to a hospital, should have done anything except what he did, which was carry this stranger into his home, settle her on his couch, and begin cleaning her wounds with the gentleness he used when Emma scraped her knees. "What's your name?" he asked softly as she drifted in and out of consciousness. "Sarah," she mumbled. "Just Sarah." For 3 days, Sarah barely spoke. She flinched whenever Marcus moved too quickly, refused to let him call anyone, and spent most of her time staring out the window with haunted eyes. Emma, with the fearless curiosity of childhood, had taken an immediate liking to their mysterious guest. "Is Sarah a princess?" Emma asked on the 4th morning, watching Sarah pick at her scrambled eggs. "Why would you think that?" Marcus asked, refilling Sarah's coffee cup. "She has sad eyes like the princess in my book, the one who's locked in the tower." Sarah's hand trembled as she set down her fork. "I'm nobody special, Emma. Just someone who made a lot of mistakes." But Marcus had noticed things. The way Sarah unconsciously straightened her posture when she thought no one was looking. The expensive watch she tried to hide under her sleeve. The way she spoke here, educated, careful, like someone accustomed to choosing words that mattered. On the 6th day, Sarah finally opened up. They were sitting on the fire escape while Emma played inside, the city sprawling below them in all its broken glory. "I've never had someone just help me," Sarah said quietly, without wanting something, without asking questions. Marcus lit a cigarette, his last one. "Everyone deserves help. Even someone who's hurt people, made decisions that destroyed lives." He studied her profile in the dim light. "Especially then." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "The man who did this to me. He said I deserved it. Said I was getting what was coming to me." Her voice cracked. "Maybe he was right. Nobody deserves to be beaten," Marcus said firmly. "I don't care what you've done." That night, Sarah helped Emma with her homework while Marcus made dinner with their dwindling groceries. Watching them together, Sarah's patient explanations, Emma's delighted giggles as something shifted in his chest. For the first time in months, his apartment felt like a home again. But the past has a way of catching up. Marcus was sorting through bills the next morning when his phone rang. The caller ID made his blood freeze. James Morrison, his former business partner, the man whose family construction company had been his biggest competitor before Meridian Industries destroyed them both. "Marcus, Turn on Channel 7 now. With shaking hands, Marcus grabbed the remote. The morning news was running a breaking story. CEO of Meridian Industries missing after domestic violence incident. The photo that filled the screen made his world tilt sideways. Sarah, not the broken woman who'd been living on his couch, but polished, powerful, radiating the kind of confidence that came with controlling million-dollar decisions. Sarah Catherine Meridian, CEO and majority shareholder of Meridian Industries. The woman who had personally signed the order to cancel his contract. The woman who had destroyed his business, his savings, his future. The woman who had reduced him to Caesar, barely keeping his daughter fed, facing eviction, watching his dreams crumble into dust. She was standing in the kitchen when he found her, making coffee like she belonged there. Like she hadn't spent 8 months sleeping peacefully while he lay awake wondering how to keep Emma from losing the only home she'd ever known. Sarah Catherine Meridian, he said, his voice deadly quiet. The coffee mug slipped from her hands, shattering against the linoleum floor. She turned slowly, and he saw his own realization reflected in her eyes. She knew. She remembered him now. Marcus Thompson, Thompson Construction. She whispered, "Oh God, you destroyed my life." The words came out broken, raw with months of suppressed rage and desperation. "My daughter and I are losing our home because of you. I've been working 3 part-time jobs just to keep food on the table because of a decision you made in some boardroom." Sarah's face went white. "I remember the emergency cost-cutting measures. We had to cancel 15 contracts to avoid bankruptcy ourselves." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I remember your name on the list. Do you remember the lives attached to those names, the families?" Marcus's hands shook with fury. "Or were we just numbers to you?" Sarah staggered backward. "I thought I was saving the company, saving jobs." The board said. The board said what? That destroying small businesses was acceptable collateral damage. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Daddy, why are you yelling?" The sight of his daughter cut through Marcus's rage like ice water. In that moment, seeing Emma's confusion and fear, he faced an impossible choice. The woman who had ruined his life was standing in his kitchen, broken and bleeding, and his daughter had come to love her. Sarah was already moving toward the door. "I should go. I should have left days ago." "Where?" Marcus asked, hating himself for caring. "Back to whoever did this to you." She flinched. "That's not your problem." "You made it my problem when you knocked on my door bleeding." The silence stretched between them, heavy with months of pain and a week of unexpected connection. Emma looked between them, sensing the adult tensions she couldn't understand. "Is Sarah leaving?" Emma's voice was small, worried. Marcus closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his lids, he saw 2 paths stretching before him. One led to justice, to satisfaction, to watching the woman who destroyed him face the consequences of her actions. The other led to something harder, more complicated, more human. When he opened his eyes, Sarah was crying silently, clutching her ribs where the bruises were darkest. "No, sweetheart," he told Emma, his voice steady despite the war raging in his heart. "Sarah's not leaving. She's hurt, and people who are hurt need time to heal." Sarah stared at him in disbelief. "Why? After what I did to you, why would you?" "Because," Marcus said, reaching for words that felt bigger than his anger, "because my daughter is watching. Because the man I want to be, the father I want to be, doesn't throw broken people back into the storm, even when they deserve it." The next few weeks passed in a strange, tense ballet. Sarah insisted on contributing however she could, cleaning, cooking, helping Emma with schoolwork. She never spoke about her company or her wealth, living instead like someone grateful for the simplest kindnesses. Marcus watched her flinch at sudden movements, saw her jump whenever a door slammed too hard, and gradually began to see not just the CEO who had signed his destruction, but the woman who had been systematically beaten down by someone who should have protected her. One evening, while Emma slept, Sarah finally told him the whole truth about Richard, her business partner and fiancée tilde copyright, whose charming exterior hid a controlling monster. About how he'd gradually isolated her from friends and family, convinced the board she was unstable, orchestrated a hostile takeover while beating her into submission. The cost-cutting measures, she said, staring at her hands. Richard pushed them through while I was recovering from a particularly bad night. I signed documents I barely read because I could hardly think straight. He told me it was necessary, that I was saving the company. She looked up at Marcus with hollow eyes. I didn't know your story. I didn't know any of their stories. I just signed my name and tried to survive another day. Marcus felt his carefully maintained anger begin to crack. That doesn't undo what happened to me. To Emma. No, Sarah agreed. It doesn't. Nothing can undo that. But I can try to make it right. How? Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a checkbook. The first time Marcus had seen her touch anything connected to her old life. I can start by paying you what you're owed. The full contract amount, plus interest, plus enough to secure Emma's future. Marcus stared at the check she wrote. More money than he'd seen in years. I can't take this. Why not? Because it feels like I'm being paid for helping you. That's not what this was. Then what was it? Marcus struggled for words. It was just human decency. Something you do because it's right, not because you expect payment. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'd forgotten that existed. That transformation wasn't instant or dramatic. Sarah began seeing a therapist, started the long legal battle to reclaim her company from Richard. Marcus used her money to save his home and start rebuilding his business, but more importantly, he watched Emma bloom under the attention of two adults who genuinely cared for her. Months later, as they sat on the same fire escape where Sarah had first opened up to him, Marcus realized the woman beside him was nothing like the person who had knocked on his door that rainy night. The fear was mostly gone, replaced by a quiet strength. She'd cut her hair, learned to laugh at Emma's jokes, discovered a talent for bedtime stories. I never thanked you, Sarah said suddenly. For what? For seeing me as human when I'd forgotten how to be one myself. Marcus considered this. You saved my life too, you know. I destroyed your life. No, Marcus said carefully. Richard destroyed both our lives. You just happened to be the weapon he used. But living with you, watching Emma love you, learning your story, it reminded me that good and evil aren't usually that simple. That people can be both victims and perpetrators, sometimes in the same moment. Sarah leaned against the railing. Emma asked me yesterday if I was going to be her new mommy. Marcus's heart skipped. What did you tell her? I told her that some families are made by choice, not just by blood, and that I'd be honored to be part of whatever family she wanted to build. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the city, two broken people who had found healing in the most unexpected place. Emma's laughter drifted through the open window behind them, the sound of a child who felt safe and loved. I still have nightmares sometimes, Sarah admitted. About Richard. About the person I was when I was with him. We all have ghosts, Marcus replied. The trick is not letting them haunt the people we're becoming. Later that night, after Emma had fallen asleep between them during movie night, Marcus looked across the couch at Sarah. Really looked at her. She was reading Emma's story even though their daughter was clearly unconscious, her voice soft and patient. In that moment, he saw not the CEO who had once destroyed his life, but the woman who had helped him rebuild it into something better than it had ever been. Sometimes, Marcus reflected, The greatest acts of courage aren't grand gestures or heroic moments. Sometimes courage is simply opening your door to a stranger in the rain, even when you have nothing left to give. Sometimes it's choosing compassion over revenge, even when revenge feels justified. Sometimes it's believing that people can change, that broken things can be mended, that love can grow in the most unlikely soil. And sometimes, if you're very fortunate, that courage comes back to you multiplied, in the form of a family you never expected and a future you never dared to imagine.